Welcome to the deep dive. We are here to take the systems, the structures that run the modern world and really break them down into practical knowledge you can apply right away.
And today we're dissecting something that's, well, completely universal. It's the architecture of your day.
Daily regimens,
Yeah.
the things we do from the moment we regain consciousness to the moment we, succumb to sleep.
Exactly. We're focused on the true architecture. The behaviors that dictate your energy, your mood, and at the end of the day, your productivity.
You've called them the hidden algorithms that run our lives.
That's what they are. Essentially, our routines are these hidden algorithms. Most of the time, they're running on autopilot.
And I love that term, algorithm. It really implies this automated, repeatable sequence of actions. So our mission today is to, pull back the curtain on these profound, often subconscious behaviors that govern us.
And hopefully this leads to some powerful aha moments about self-governance for you, the listener.
It's remarkable when you realize how much of your day is just played out automatically.
Well, it is. And by understanding and then deliberately manipulating those automatic algorithms, that's when you gain control over your entire output. It's the essence of self-mastery.
Okay, so let's start with a confession. I feel like we have to.
Please do.
If we're going to talk about overhauling routines, we have to acknowledge the flaws.
Yeah.
I had a huge routine vice. It governed my first 20 minutes every single morning.
I think I can guess what it is.
The instant I regained awareness, I instinctively reached for my phone.
There it is. The most common vice of the 21st century. It's the digital equivalent of smoking first thing.
It really is.
And when you reach for it, what's the default action? Are you just checking the time or something more demanding?
Oh, demanding and damaging. I'd sift through work correspondence and then, inevitably spiral into what we call doom scrolling.
Right.
Just sifting through news or social media, consuming content that's designed to outrage you or demand your attention. I'd look up and 20 minutes were just gone, vaporized.
That's such a critical insight because so many people do the exact same thing. And what's happening there is immediate cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload.
You're asking your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of the brain responsible for higher level thinking, planning, focus. You're asking it to engage in high stress information triage before you've even properly stretched your muscles.
Exactly. I started the day in a reactive state, already anticipating external demands and feeling this low-level anxiety. Those precious, quiet first moments, which should be restorative, they were instantly squandered. It was a massive psychological tax.
It is.
So I had to completely overhaul my waking algorithm.
Let's focus on that overhaul because reducing that immediate cognitive strain is just paramount to setting a productive baseline for the day.
So what's happening physiologically at that point?
Well, when you first wake up, your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, are naturally spiking. That's what facilitates the transition from sleep to wakefulness.
Okay.
But when you add immediate digital stress, you just amplify that spike unnecessarily.
Right. So my new approach is restorative. Upon waking, I just lie still for a moment. I remain motionless, focusing on my breathing. I engage in deep, controlled, diaphragmatic breathing, slowly, deeply, making sure the core is engaged. Then I'll indulge in a light, gentle stretch just to wake the body up, incrementally.
That incremental awakening is so key. You're creating a protective boundary, a buffer between the passive sleeping self and the aggressive demands of the information economy.
A buffer. I like that.
Breathing along signals safety to your nervous system. Now, do you integrate any kind of conscious thought during that time? Maybe some optional affirming ideation?
I do. It's become a moment for internal reflection. I might articulate an intention for the day or just entertain a quiet, positive assertion.
Like what?
Something simple. A concept like, today holds promise, or I am equipped for whatever challenges transpire. It's a form of cognitive reframing.
It is.
Setting the narrative before the day sets it for me.
Cognitive reframing is such a powerful self-governance practice. You're leveraging the brain's natural malleability. If you feed it panic, it produces panic. If you feed it positive expectancy, it shifts towards solution-seeking behavior. You're training the brain's filters.
And as learners, we have to be able to talk about these rituals with precise language. Let's try and integrate some vocabulary into this discussion, naturally.
I agree. Let's start with that transition itself, from sleeping to waking. Instead of just waking up, we can use a more literary and formal phrase, rouse oneself.
It has a different weight, doesn't it? For example, I struggled to rouse myself before dawn this morning. It conveys that struggle against fatigue so much better than just, I struggled to wake up.
It elevates the description of the effort involved.
Yeah.
And speaking of that grogginess, we need the scientific term for that feeling of hitting the snooze button, trying to snatch a few more minutes of rest.
Oh, I know that feeling well. That resistance.
That resistance is scientifically known as sleep inertia.
Sleep inertia.
The inertia is that deep-seated resistance to change, right? When you repeatedly hit snooze, you're fracturing the sleep cycle. And you're making that feeling of grogginess, that sleep inertia, last longer.
So it's a detriment to the whole morning.
And you're engaging in a detrimental propensity, an inclination toward a behavior that's known to be harmful. It's a key term when we talk about habits.
Okay, so once you successfully rouse yourself and you overcome that inertia, the next step is actually getting out of bed.
The physical act.
Which we can elegantly refer to as what? You must vacate the bed.
You must vacate the bed. Or leave your sleeping quarters. And once you're out, before you start full activity, I always recommend a moment to stretch.
Right, to prepare the muscles for activity.
Exactly. We call that segment the moment to limber up. It just means stretching and gently loosening your muscles, shaking off the stiffness from sleep. If you're sitting all day, this is crucial.
So we've navigated the waking algorithm. We're stretched. We're mentally framed. Now we transition into, part 2? Fueling the system.
Hydration, nutrition, and order.
Okay, where do you start?
For me, the first non-negotiable step is hydration. It is absolutely paramount.
Why so critical first thing?
You have to consider you've been in a state of, fasting and dehydration for upwards of 8 hours.
That lack of hydration impacts everything, doesn't it? Cognitive function, energy levels.
Everything. If you feel tired when you wake up, often it's not a sleep deficit, it's a water deficit. The blood is slightly thicker, making the heart work harder.
So what's your system?
I keep a carafe of water right on the nightstand. Consuming a large glass immediately upon waking is instantly invigorating. It helps naturally jumpstart your metabolism before any caffeine is even introduced.
See, I used to go straight to the coffee machine, but I've shifted that priority now.
Good.
Hydration first, then the beloved caffeine ritual. It establishes a much healthier physiological baseline. It allows the brain to recover before you ask it to perform.
Now on to breakfast. Do you feel a need to eat a big meal right away?
No, generally not. I certainly don't have a ravenous appetite the second I get out of bed. I need that transition time.
That's actually very common. It's rooted in digestive biology. Your digestive system needs about 30 minutes to fully activate before it can effectively process a complex meal.
So trying to force a huge breakfast too soon can actually make you sluggish.
Exactly. So what's your preferred approach for sustained energy?
I focus on minimalistic but nutritionally dense options. Whole grains, fiber, protein, maybe some whole grain toast with nut butter or Greek yogurt with berries. The goal is balance to prevent a blood sugar spike.
That emphasis on glycemic stability is so vital. My preference is similar protein focused. Eggs, usually scrambled, served with what I call artisanal toast.
Artisanal toast.
Meaning, high quality whole grain sourdough. And maybe garnished with some avocado for healthy fats. It's dense fuel designed to last.
That sounds like a sophisticated breakfast. For our listeners aiming to enrich their language, let's integrate some culinary vocabulary.
Perfect. Let's define complex cereals. You hear the terms muesli or granola. These are complex. They have oats, nuts, seeds, dried fruits. They're designed to avoid that sugar crash mid-morning.
Right. And for a warm option, there's porridge.
Which is a viscous dish, usually from oats. It's incredibly satiating.
Satiating meaning it gives you a long-lasting feeling of fullness.
Which is excellent for concentration. And of course, the more indulgent items. Waffles, the delicious, crisp, grid-patterned batter cakes.
And their flat, fluffy cousins. Hotcakes or pancakes? Good phrases to know.
So once the internal system is fueled, we have to prepare the external one. This brings us to grooming and hygiene.
The minimum standard is non-negotiable. The daily oral hygiene regimen. Brushing twice a day.
Absolutely essential. Beyond that, we move to the shower protocol. Now, what's your take here?
Well, that's yours first.
I favor a quick utilitarian shower. And I prefer the temperature to be quite hot, even scalding. I'm just not built for cold exposure in the morning.
See, I have to challenge you on that. I get the comfort of the scalding water, but I advocate for tepid water.
Tepid, so lukewarm.
Lukewarm, yes. Concluding with a rapid 30-second cold shock.
30 seconds of pure misery. Why would you subject yourself to that?
Because it's physiologically beneficial. The sudden cold exposure immediately tightens blood vessels, which then rapidly dilate when you get out.
And that does what?
It provides a rush of blood flow. It's great for circulation. and it gives you an instant burst of alertness. It reinvigorates the whole system way better than a cup of coffee.
I can see the physiological benefit, but maybe I'll build up to that level of aquatic intensity incrementally.
Fair enough. Before we move on, let's capture the broader vocabulary of cleaning and prep.
We use the term oral hygiene regimen. Let's broaden that to ablutions. It's a formal, sophisticated term that just means the act of washing oneself.
Right, you might read it in a book. She performed her morning ablutions.
To remove dead skin cells and refresh the skin, we use the verb exfoliate. And naturally, one must groom one's hair combing, brushing, styling it.
And the final act of preparation, often used formally, attire.
It just means to put on your clothes. After drying off, I don my professional attire.
Perfect. We're groomed, we're dressed. But before we leave, we have to discuss a small habit that holds a disproportionately large psychological weight.
Making the bed.
Making the bed. Do you do it daily, or do you leave it as a, landscape of rumpled blankets?
I am a convert. I do it daily now.
The psychological impact is genuinely surprising for such a minimal effort, isn't it?
It really is. Many people dismiss it as a trivial task. But tell us, why does that 5-minute habit matter so much to the rest of the day?
Because it serves as the day's first completed task. When you look back in your bedroom, your environment is orderly, it's contained, and that provides an immediate, tangible sense of what you call organizational efficacy. You've already proven to yourself that you can achieve structure.
That sense of an early victory just feeds the rest of the day. It's a foundational psychological principle.
You mentioned Agro McRaven's famous sentiment about this.
Right. If you wish to change the world, commence by making your bed.
And the profound logic there is that it generates momentum. You successfully complete one simple, visible task, and that success psychologically propels you to tackle the next bigger task.
It creates a cascade effect. Psychologists call this the small wins strategy. By stacking small, undeniable victories early in the morning, you increase your confidence and energy.
Right.
And then, if you return home to a chaotic bedroom, the chaos subtly signals a lack of control. But if you return to a pristine bed, you're signaling, I'm in control of my environment.
I find that incredibly motivating. The mechanics of habit formation are built right on that idea.
Exactly. Okay, so you're dressed, the environment is pristine, you're leaving for the day. This brings us to part 3. Reclaiming the interstices.
The what?
The interstices, the gaps in between. Let's call it cognitive stacking.
Okay, so whether you're driving or using mass transit, the bus, the subway, there's often this segment of time that is mentally dead.
That time is the target for reclamation. I use my commute for deliberate cognitive enrichment.
How do you do that? Say, during a typical 25-minute subway transit.
I reserve that 25 minutes exclusively for consuming educational podcasts or audiobooks, either in my field or maybe history.
So you're transforming time that would otherwise be spent just staring blankly into an active learning period?
Exactly. I'm essentially adding a semester's worth of learning annually just by optimizing that commute.
That is precisely the definition of cognitive stacking. You're efficiently layering a productive activity, mind enrichment, on top of a necessary but passive obligation, commuting.
It's the efficient management of your intellectual resources. And it's vital to identify these interstitial moments, these small gaps. Commuting, waiting in line, folding laundry.
Waiting for the kettle to boil.
Exactly. These fragments, when you consistently aggregate them, become a huge block of time.
Now, I have to add a necessary caveat here. Sometimes my brain just needs to switch off. Sometimes I just zoom out and gaze vacantly out the window and let my thoughts wander.
And that is crucial to acknowledge. The brain cannot operate at peak performance constantly. That downtime is necessary for processing information, for consolidating memories.
It's not wasted time.
It's not wasted time at all. It's necessary cognitive maintenance. The goal is balance, not maximizing every single microsecond.
Speaking of maximizing learning, I have a powerful technique for our English learning listeners, utilizing self-talk.
Conversing with oneself. That sounds like a fast track to getting strange looks on the train.
Well, maybe you do it quietly. But the beauty of self-talk is that it's a formidable zero-pressure practice method for language acquisition.
Because you're the only audience.
Exactly. There's no fear of scrutiny or performance anxiety.
So what's the method?
You simply narrate your current actions and observations. I'm currently traversing the platform waiting for the train to arrive, or I am now fastening my coat because the weather appears quite inclement.
That's astute. You are constantly practicing real-time verb tenses, sequencing, descriptive vocabulary. You're basically generating your own personal audio biography in the target language.
It strengthens the neural pathways between thought and fluent articulation.
It's pure, consistent repetition.
And speaking of the potency of consistency, let me share a quick anecdote that powerfully demonstrates this idea of reallocating time.
Please do. Because the chronic lack of time is the most common complaint we hear.
I had an acquaintance, Carlos. He desperately wanted to enhance his English fluency, but insisted he couldn't find an extra hour in his day. The classic, I just don't have the time.
The ultimate form of procrastination, disguised as a logistical impossibility.
Exactly. Then Carlos had an epiphany about the digital vortex. He realized he was squandering 30 minutes every day, scrolling mindlessly through Instagram during his lunch break.
30 minutes. That's 2.5 hours a week. Hundreds of hours a year.
Precisely. So he executed a strategic replacement. He substituted those 30 minutes of scrolling with English immersion watching video content while he ate. He didn't invent new time. He reallocated existing time.
And what was the observable result?
Within 2 months, his auditory comprehension and his vocabulary recall just skyrocketed. He was genuinely astonished by the cumulative progress from just 30 minutes of consistent, focused effort.
That story is a perfect segue into part 4, navigating the trough, the dreaded afternoon slump.
Ah, yes. It usually hits me hard around 2 or 3 p.m. My vitality just plummets, often right when I need to do complex analytical work.
It is a profound shared physiological experience. But why does this happen so reliably, regardless of how well we slept?
Well, it's a combination of 2 powerful forces. First, the postprandial glucose spike.
The after-lunch effect.
If that meal was heavy on refined carbs, you get a rush, followed by a precipitous crash.
And the second force is the natural rhythm of our bodies. Our circadian rhythms, the internal biological clock, it naturally schedules a dip in alertness and core body temperature in the early afternoon.
So you're biologically programmed for a rest period.
In a way, yes. Recognizing that is the first step to mitigating it. So what's your go-to strategy when that fatigue hits?
I used to rely on a strong espresso, but...
That often just delays the fatigue and then induces jitters or anxiety later. It's a suboptimal solution that mortgages your future focus.
Exactly. I avoid the caffeine path entirely in the afternoon now. My preferred optimal solution is a brief ambulation.
A walk.
A 10-minute walk outside, regardless of the weather.
And does that seemingly small amount of physical movement truly restore focus?
It is surprisingly and profoundly effective. When you move, you reinvigorate blood flow, you send oxygenated blood to the brain. This movement also triggers the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine, which lift your mood and sharpen your focus. And the fresh air is a genuine tonic.
That's the key warning then. Remaining sedentary and forcing yourself to stare at a screen through heavy fatigue is highly detrimental.
You just produce low-quality work.
The solution isn't brute force. It's gentle physical intervention. I need to actively stretch my legs after lunch.
Let's give our listeners a few advanced phrases for discussing breaks and fighting that lethargy.
We can start with take a respite. It means to pause from working briefly to recuperate. I ensure I take a respite every 2 hours.
And to describe the feeling we're combating, we can use the formal terms fatigue or lethargy. I combat afternoon lethargy by walking around the office.
And the goal of the break is to rejuvenate, to restore energy. I need to rejuvenate my mental faculties before tackling that report.
We're fighting this low-energy phase partly by moving and partly by strategic fueling. If the body is a battery, it needs a strategic recharge, not a sugar shock.
Absolutely. We have to maintain that goal of glycemic stability. If you're snacking, focus on nutritional density. Nuts, fruits, or even crudités.
Raw vegetables like carrots and celery.
Right. They provide fiber and sustained energy release.
And we must strictly avoid the processed carbs and sugary treats. They offer artificial stamina, a powerful, fleeting spike, followed by a catastrophic, precipitous crash.
They lack longevity, and they just deepen the trough.
Consuming nutrient-rich sustenance ensures you avoid that physiological roller coaster so you can sustain focus and sail smoothly through the rest of the day.
And that smooth sailing transitions us to part 5. Decompression and reflection. The evening. This is arguably the most critical period for psychological recovery.
It really is. The homecoming transition is vital. It's where you signal to your system that the external pressure of work is finally dissipating.
The sentiment has to be, I have successfully navigated the day, and now I may decompress.
So what are the necessary rituals for that transition?
My immediate ritual is both practical and psychological. Taking off my shoes and immediately changing into comfortable leisure wear. I cannot stay in corporate attire at home.
It keeps you tethered to the stressful environment you just left.
Exactly. It prevents the mental shift.
That's a subtle but powerful ritualistic change. Once you've transitioned, what's next for you?
I often prepare dinner. I find cooking intensely therapeutic. It diverts my focus from abstract professional stressors to the immediate tactile sensory process of preparing food.
You are describing a classic state of mindfulness, being fully present and engaged in the current activity rather than ruminating on the past or worrying about the future.
Cooking becomes a form of active meditation. When I'm chopping vegetables, my mind is quiet because it's fully occupied with that immediate physical task.
It's a productive way to achieve mental calm. Let's quickly give our listeners the language to articulate those kitchen actions.
Good idea. For preparatory work, we use the verb dice to cut ingredients into small, uniform cubes. I dice the onions and peppers.
Then for sauces or soups, we have simmer,
which means keeping the liquid just below boiling point. I let the marinara sauce simmer for an hour to develop the flavor.
When you're using a pan, you often saute. To fry quickly in a little hot fat or oil, I saute the shallots until they're translucent.
And for dry heat cooking in an oven, we use roast. I roast the vegetables with olive oil and sea salt until they caramelize.
Okay, post-dinner, media consumption. For English learners, this should be an opportunity for continued immersion.
Crucially, this requires a specific pedagogical approach. If you're watching television or a film, you must use English subtitles, not subtitles in your native tongue.
Because that provides the optimal benefit. It provides dual input. You're reading the text and listening to the spoken word simultaneously.
And this significantly enhances orthography, the correct spelling, and helps you map spoken sounds to written forms. It's essential for fluency and pronunciation.
It feels arduous at first because your brain is working harder to map both inputs at speed.
But through consistent practice, it becomes seamless. It marks a key milestone in achieving proficiency.
After the body is nourished and the mind has been enriched, what's your final evening ritual before settling down?
I engage in a nocturnal stroll, a gentle walk of the neighborhood. It aids digestion and clears the mental residue of the day.
And during this gentle perambulation, as you call it, do you integrate any specific mental exercise?
I do. I engage in a practice called retrospective analysis. I spend time ruminating, analyzing what went well during the day, and critically, what could be optimized or handled more effectively tomorrow.
A form of self-coaching.
Exactly.
That consistent, structured daily reflection is a stellar habit. It's widely practiced by high achievers. It transforms raw, chaotic experience into actionable wisdom.
If you skip this review process, you are doomed to repeat suboptimal behaviors simply because you haven't identified them.
It lets you enter the next day having already solved some of today's problems.
Exactly. Now, before we get to sleep hygiene, let's discuss the single most crucial ingredient underpinning all of these routines: consistency.
The undisputed keystone of change.
Consistency or regularity is the secret to habit solidification. We have to aggressively challenge the idea that sporadic, massive effort is superior to small, relentless consistency.
It's not superior, it's often counterproductive. A 30-minute daily habit, executed without exception, yields mastery much faster than a 5-hour binge once every 2 weeks.
The brain simply requires repetition.
Let's give our audience the scientific reason for why that small daily dose works better. The brain science.
The scientific explanation lies in neuroplasticity. This is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. And how does it form them? Through repetition.
Neurons that fire together, wire together.
That's Hebb's law. When you perform an action consistently, say drinking water first thing, the specific neural pathways for that action become physically stronger, more automatic.
Sporadic effort creates weak, temporary connections.
Daily, relentless effort builds a neurological highway.
So the message is clear. Start with small, manageable increments, but be utterly relentless in their daily execution. It's about building strong wire, not temporary thread.
And this relentless commitment must also apply to habit modification, meaning addressing the vices we all possess.
We have to acknowledge them first. My vice, as I confessed, is often consuming excessive sugar or confectionery at night.
A moderate indulgence is fine, but nightly excess undermines energy, sleep, performance.
So what's the strategy?
Reducing frequency rather than attempting total abstinence. Total deprivation is often the fast track to failure. It typically leads to subsequent binging behavior.
Right, where you relapse spectacularly after a period of being really rigid.
So we advocate for a two-part strategy. First, self-awareness. Acknowledge the vice and the cues that trigger it. Second, and most importantly, replacement.
You can't just cut out the habit and leave a void.
You have to substitute the old routine with a new, healthier one. The habit loop cue, routine, reward demands that you maintain the cue and the reward, but change the routine.
So if your cue is sitting down after dinner and your reward is pleasure, substitute crisps for air-popped popcorn.
Or substitute social media scrolling for an engaging English podcast. The replacement habit has to be marginally healthier or more productive, making the transition as effortless as possible.
You're filling the void strategically. Now, for the final, crucial algorithm, sleep hygiene protocol. When do you aim to go to bed?
I aim for 22.30, but inevitably, that retrospective analysis sometimes pushes my actual drifting off time to 23.30.
And what happens if you break your own strict protocol? Do you suffer from insomnia? The inability to fall or stay asleep?
I do, especially if I've exposed myself to excessive blue light in the evening. This light is particularly insidious because it actively suppresses the production of melatonin.
The hormone that signals sleep readiness.
Right. It's the great technological sabotage of our rest. The blue light deceives the brain into perceiving daylight.
So the strict protocol must be non-negotiable for quality rest. No screens, regardless of content, for 30 minutes prior to sleep.
What's the recommended alternative?
Reading. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, the act of reading requires a calm focus, which naturally settles racing thoughts. It induces a state of calm. Reading truly acts as a sedative for the mind.
I find that reading shifts the focus from anxiety to narrative, which is far less demanding on the nervous system. Let's conclude this segment by defining the vocabulary associated with rest.
Okay. Decompress. To relax after a period of stress. I decompress nightly by reading and drinking herbal tea.
Drift off. A gentle phrase meaning to gradually fall asleep. I drifted off within minutes, exhausted from the day.
Restless. That state of being unable to relax or find comfort. I was restless all night, ruminating on an upcoming deadline.
And the ultimate goal, sleep soundly. To sleep deeply without interruption. I slept soundly for 8 hours and felt entirely refreshed.
This has been a thoroughly comprehensive examination of the algorithms that govern our daily lives. Now some final counsel.
Do not attempt a total lifestyle overhaul simultaneously. That massive ambition is the enemy of consistency.
Select 1 or 2 micro-habits to focus on first.
Start with the foundation, not the roof. What is one small thing effortless to achieve that you can commit to daily?
For our English learners, the counsel is twofold. Immersion 10 minutes of auditory input daily, consistently. And the powerful practice of verbalizing existence, that self-talk technique.
And let's conclude with a couple of motivational insights. Never forget, you don't have to be great to start, but you absolutely have to start to be great.
Don't wait for perfection. That's just procrastination in disguise.
And focus inward. Comparison is the thief of joy. The only person you should compare yourself to is your past self.
Measure your progress internally, not against the curated highlight reels of others.
All right, let's do a final affirmation practice. Reinforcing these concepts. Repeat these thoughts to yourself as you finish this deep dive.
I possess autonomy over my habits.
My incremental actions construct my future.
I prioritize progress over perfection.
I am evolving daily.
And here's your final provocative thought and action item. Your challenge tonight is to define that single, tiny, effortless micro-habit.
Like consuming water immediately upon waking, or replacing 10 minutes of scrolling with a podcast.
Write it down. Make the action so small that you cannot possibly fail. Execute it tomorrow. In 90 days, you will look back and be astonished by the transformation wrought by this simple act of consistency.
We believe in your potential. Remember, your habits are your destiny.
Until the next deep dive. Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today is pretty specific. We're not just talking about having a to-do list or a daily routine.
Yeah.
We are getting into the fine art of optimization. I mean, how to actually execute that routine with maximum focus, with high efficacy, and really make every single hour count.
Yeah.
We want to give you the sort of intellectual architecture to build a truly robust and, productive workday.
That distinction is everything.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. So many people carry around this feeling of chronic inadequacy.
Right.
Because they have the structure, the calendar entries are there, the project plans exist, but they just find themselves failing to gain any real traction.
Spinning their wheels.
Exactly. So today we're targeting the actual psychological enemies that sabotage that efficacy. We're talking procrastination, distraction, and of course the silent killer, Burnout.
The heavy hitters. These are the powerful, invisible forces that just drain our energy and derail our most important goals.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're running a multinational company or you're just trying to finish that one difficult report.
It's universal.
It is. We acknowledge that every listener, regardless of their expertise, struggles with these constantly.
Absolutely. And just recognizing and naming these enemies is such a crucial first step.
Totally.
We get that feeling of being perpetually busy, of having your calendar booked solid, but not actually producing meaningful results. We call that the tyranny of the urgent.
I like that. The tyranny of the urgent.
It is. So our goal here is to provide a really detailed, comprehensive toolkit. We want to give you the specific vocabulary, the strategies, and the psychological insight to fight back immediately.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We're going to jump right into, I think, the foundational concept that has genuinely revolutionized workflows.
It really has.
Because if you don't grasp this distinction, everything else we talk about is it's just busy work. We're talking about deep work.
Yes. This is, and I don't say this lightly, the single most important term for a modern professional.
Wow.
It was coined by Professor Cal Newport, and it really represents the pinnacle of productivity. It's essential vocabulary, but I find it's often misinterpreted.
Yeah, people confuse it with just working hard or, putting in long hours.
Exactly.
So could you give us the precise definition and maybe more importantly, explain why it's so incredibly valuable?
Certainly. Deep work refers to professional activities that are performed in a state of distraction-free concentration.
Zero distractions.
Zero. And it deliberately pushes your cognitive capabilities right to their limit. It requires this intense focus, and the results it generates are always high value. This is the work that, improves your skill set, it solves truly complex problems, and it's difficult for anyone else or a machine to replicate.
Okay, so if that's deep work intense, high value, concentrated, then we have to immediately contrast it with what fills most people's schedules.
The other 90% of the day.
Right, shallow work.
Exactly. Shallow work consists of all those non-cognitively demanding logistical style tasks. These are often activities you do while you're distracted or, semi-distracted. Think answering routine emails, the rapid-fire Slack messaging.
Oh, the Slack messages.
Administrative formatting, scheduling meetings, clicking through informational PowerPoint decks. These tasks are necessary evils to keep the machine running, but they rarely require any true, sustained cognitive effort.
And here's where I think the analysis of value gets really interesting. The cruel joke is that shallow work, it masquerades as productivity.
It absolutely does.
You feel so busy, you see your inbox count dropping, you're responding instantly, and you get this little short-term hit of instant gratification. But you're not actually creating lasting value or gaining any real substantial traction on your major life-defining goals.
We call that phenomenon performative busyness.
Performative busyness, I love that.
It's the act of rapidly spinning your wheels. And the reason we often lean into it is it's psychological. Shallow work is predictable and it's safe. It provides these instant small doses of dopamine.
A quick fix.
A quick fix. Deep work, on the other hand, is hard. It involves confronting problems you might not know how to solve, and that triggers anxiety and cognitive fatigue.
So, okay, let me see if I got this. Shallow work is comforting, it's easy, and it's immediately rewarded.
Correct.
And deep work is demanding, its reward is delayed, and it requires immense discipline.
Precisely. And that tells you what the ultimate goal has to be. Scheduling deliberate, distraction-free blocks of deep work into your routine has to be non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Because if you treat deep work as something you'll get to, if you finish everything else,
you'll never get to it.
You will never get to it. The shallow work will always creep in and fill every available moment. It's like a gas.
That brings up the methodology. You can't just, decide to do deep work. You need a strategy for how to implement it. Newport talks about a few main philosophies, right?
That's right. And the way you integrate deep work really depends on your profession. The most intense strategy, which is not for most of us, is the monastic approach.
Yeah.
This is where you basically cut out all communication to focus entirely on one project for long, long periods.
Yeah, most people can't just move to a cabin in the woods to write their manifesto.
Not without getting fired, no.
Yeah.
So then we have the more practical approaches. There's the bimodal approach.
Okay.
This is where you dedicate long periods, maybe a full week or a month, to deep work. And that's interspersed with large periods of shallow work and communication. Think of a professor who takes a summer off to write a book.
Right, that makes sense. And then there's the one I think most people could actually use.
The rhythmic approach. This is the most common and the most accessible. You establish a consistent, fixed time block daily, say 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and that time is dedicated only to deep work. You make it a rhythm you just never break.
Like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. It becomes an automatic habit. And finally, there's the highly disciplined journalistic approach.
This one sounds hard.
It is. This is for experts who can switch modes really quickly. They can just jump into deep work whenever they find a 90-minute or a 2-hour gap in their schedule.
Like a journalist rushing to file a story.
Precisely. But that requires immense mental discipline. I'd say most people should start with the rhythmic strategy. Build the muscle first.
To really understand why scheduling and, protecting that rhythm is so critical, we have to integrate some of this essential vocabulary around focus.
Yeah.
Starting with the state that, sadly, most of us live in.
Let's talk about fragmented attention. This describes the constant state of modern life where our focus is just consistently shattered.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to build a complex structure, but every 5 minutes someone throws a pebble at your head.
Yeah.
That's what a notification ping or an email banner does to your concentration.
And the research is so clear on this that constant switching, even if you switch back really quickly, it leaves something behind.
Exactly. It leaves behind what's called attention residue. This is a key concept.
Yeah.
When you switch from task A to task B, your attention doesn't immediately follow. A portion of your cognitive resources, your attention residue, is still stuck thinking about the rules and the details and the context of task A.
So you're literally bringing the stress of your inbox into the report you're trying to write.
You are. You're never fully present in the new task. You're operating with a fraction of your mental horsepower.
And when attention is that fragmented, you inevitably increase your cognitive load.
That is correct. Cognitive load is simply the amount of working memory resources you are using at any given time.
Like RAM in a computer.
Perfect analogy. And when you try to do that rapid task switching, what people mistakenly call multitasking, you drastically increase this load. Every single time you switch, you incur what's called a switch cost.
A switch cost.
It's the time and energy required for your brain to essentially re-download the context of the new task.
And if the average professional switches tasks every 6 minutes, as some studies suggest, that switch cost must accumulate incredibly fast.
It's devastating. You might be spending 40% of your working memory just reloading context instead of actually doing the work.
40%, that's almost half the day just rebooting your brain.
It is. And that accumulation invariably leads to more errors, slower overall completion times, and a much deeper sense of fatigue at the end of the day, even if you haven't produced anything of real value.
So the fragmented state and the high cognitive load, these are the barriers we are actively trying to clear.
Yes.
In order to achieve the positive state we're aiming for, the flow state.
The flow state is the psychological opposite of fragmented attention. It's a term for being completely immersed in an activity, usually one that challenges you but doesn't totally overwhelm you.
Right, you're in zone.
You are. When you achieve flow, you lose track of time. Self-consciousness vanishes, and you're operating at peak performance capacity with almost no wasted effort.
It sounds almost effortless when you're in it, but it requires an absolute ton of effort to set the stage for it.
It does. A flow state is achievable only when you have protected the boundaries of your deep work session. If you allow distractions in, you will never enter that state of immersion. Deep work is the necessary pathway. Flow is the incredible reward for maintaining that concentration.
Fascinating. So we know the destination flow state via deep work, but the most insidious force stopping us from getting there is, well, it's internal.
It usually is.
That brings us to part 2, where we have to tackle the ultimate thief of time: procrastination and inaction.
Procrastination is the arch nemesis for sure, and we need to redefine it immediately. Most people just assume it stems from laziness or poor discipline.
Yeah, I'm just lazy.
Right. But if that were true, successful, highly motivated people would never procrastinate. And yet, they do, all the time.
So is it just a lack of motivation then, or is the root far more complex than that?
The research is really compelling on this. Procrastination is not a moral failing. It's not laziness. Psychologists overwhelmingly agree it's primarily an emotional regulation problem.
An emotional regulation problem. Say more about that.
We avoid a task, not because I don't know how to do it, but because the task itself induces a negative emotion that we're instinctively trying to avoid in the present moment.
So we're avoiding the effort, the anxiety of potential failure, the fear of being judged, or maybe just the sheer boredom of, filling out a spreadsheet.
Exactly. The avoidance of the task by checking social media or starting a less important but easier task is a short-term coping strategy. We're trying to soothe the negative feeling right now, but we're essentially borrowing happiness from our future self. And we're leaving that future self with a much, much larger problem.
That is a crucial insight because it completely reframes the solution. We don't need more willpower. We need strategies that manage the emotion that's attached to the task.
Yes, not just managing the time. We need tools that interrupt that emotional avoidance pattern. Judgment, shaming yourself, or just telling yourself to just do it is so counterproductive.
It's like telling a depressed person to just be happy.
It's the exact same logic, and it's just as ineffective. It ignores the underlying mechanism.
Okay, so let's get into the tools. Let's start with a brilliant technique for reducing the mental friction of all those small, pending tasks that become excuses to avoid the big work, the 2-minute rule.
This is pure, accessible brilliance for just optimizing your mental landscape.
Yeah.
The rule states, if a task takes less than 2 minutes to execute,
you do it immediately.
You do it immediately.
Don't schedule it, don't ponder it, don't add it to some growing list that you'll look at later. If it's under 120 seconds, just execute.
This is crucial for 2 reasons.
Yeah.
First, it prevents the accumulation of all those low-friction chores, IDing a folder, sending a confirmation email, washing a coffee cup that clog up your mental bandwidth.
Right.
Second, and maybe more importantly, it creates this powerful sense of forward momentum. You're demonstrating to your brain that you are a person who acts, and that reduces the inertia to start the next bigger thing.
Okay, moving from that small friction reduction to breaking down massive tasks, my favorite strategy is still the classic Pomodoro technique.
The Pomodoro technique is fantastic because it weaponizes time limits to manage the anxiety of a task.
Yeah.
It involves working in these focused, uninterrupted intervals, traditionally 25 minutes, followed by a short, dedicated break, usually 5 minutes.
The genius of this, for me, lies in commitment management. When you're facing a massive project, the brain just sees it as insurmountable.
Insurmountable. It's a great word. It means too great or severe to be overcome.
Yes.
And when the brain registers that overwhelming feeling, it often triggers what we call paralysis by analysis.
I know that one well.
We all do. We overthink the complexity, we calculate the enormous month-long effort required, and we freeze up, which leads to total inaction.
The Pomodoro just slices through that anxiety. You're not committing to finishing the entire, insurmountable project.
Right.
You're only committing to one short 25-minute sprint. Anyone can do 25 minutes.
And if even those sprints are still too intimidating, or if you have that one single massive task that just feels so emotionally heavy.
You dread.
The one you dread. Then we turn to the most confrontational strategy for procrastination, famously attributed to Mark Twain. Eat the frog.
It sounds so unappetizing.
It's meant to.
But the metaphor is crystal clear. If your job is to eat a live frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if you have 2, you eat the biggest, ugliest one first.
The practical application is tackling your most dreaded, difficult task, your frog, immediately upon starting your day, before you allow email, social media, or any other shallow work to interfere.
What's the profound psychological benefit of consuming the frog first thing?
It's all about momentum and mood management. Once that frog is eaten, the rest of the day is inherently easier, even if the other work is still hard.
Yeah.
You ride this wave of accomplishment knowing the worst thing you had to do is already done. And crucially, you eliminate the mental weight, that constant low-grade stress and dread that the impending task was casting over your entire morning.
Let's integrate some of that specific vocabulary that helps us describe these internal battles. We've mentioned dread, which is, anticipating something with great apprehension.
And dread is the fuel for our biggest struggle, which is often simply getting started. That struggle is a confrontation with inertia.
Physics.
Exactly. It's a physics term for the resistance to any change in motion. In productivity terms, it's that tendency to do nothing. That struggle to overcome the morning inertia and simply start the difficult thing.
And sometimes that inertia isn't just about starting, it's about a blockage in the middle of a process.
That's a bottleneck.
Yeah.
A point of congestion that slows down the entire process.
Right.
We often think of bottlenecks as external, a server crashing or waiting on a colleague, but they're often internal. A really common internal bottleneck is perfectionism.
Oh, definitely.
If you can't submit the work until it's perfect, and perfection is, unattainable, you've just created an insurmountable bottleneck for yourself. It leads to massive delays and dread.
And finally, a proactive term for reducing these negative impacts: mitigate.
To mitigate is to make something less severe, less serious, or less painful. We actively seek to mitigate distractions by turning off our notifications. We mitigate the dread of a huge project by breaking it down using the Pomodoro technique. Mitigation is all about intentional preventative action.
This optimization framework is so powerful for maximizing output, but there's an inherent danger here, isn't there?
A huge one.
If we push too hard, if we try to eat the frog every single day for months without proper care, we just run headfirst into the other side of the coin: burnout.
And this transition is absolutely critical. We have to discuss managing the consequence of working too hard. Burnout, as defined by the WHO, is a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed.
Not just a bad week.
No, it results in feelings of energy depletion, increased mental distance from your job, and reduced professional efficacy. It isn't just being tired, it is feeling utterly empty.
And the sources highlight a really critical common error we make when we try to recover. An error that actually leads us further down the path to burnout even when we think we're resting.
That error is the destructive conflation of rest with sleep. You can diligently sleep 8 hours a night and still feel completely exhausted and restless because you haven't mentally decompressed from the constant pressure of work. Sleep addresses physical fatigue, but mental, emotional, and sensory exhaustion require totally different types of rest.
Different types of rest. Okay, this is where the deep dive into burnout prevention gets really nuanced. We need to explore this concept further.
Absolutely. Because when we say rest, we're actually talking about 7 different categories that need to be replenished. Sleep only addresses one: physical rest.
So what are the others?
Well, we also need mental rest. This means stepping away from intellectual stimulation. It could be practicing mindfulness or even just scheduling short breaks during the day to let your mind wander without a goal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then there's emotional rest, which is the freedom to express your genuine feelings without judgment. This is huge if your job requires you to be constantly on or suppress your emotions.
Like in customer service.
Exactly. You need a safe space to just be authentic. And what about the sensory overload of modern life? The bright screens, the constant noise, the buzzing phones.
It's relentless.
That requires sensory rest. This could be as simple as closing your eyes for 5 minutes in a quiet room, turning off all the screens an hour before bed, or intentionally creating a minimalist aesthetic in your office. We are constantly bombarded, and all that sensory input drastically increases our cognitive load.
Wow. Okay, so that's physical, mental, emotional, sensory. What's left?
Then there is creative rest. For those of us who constantly have to generate new ideas, this can be replenished by appreciating art or nature. You have to fill the well back up.
Right, consume instead of produce for a bit.
Correct. And the last two are social and spiritual. Social rest is about auditing your relationships. Do you have people in your life who are draining you? They're high maintenance, they're negative, or are they replenishing? Intentional distance from draining relationships is a form of rest.
That's a big one. And spiritual.
And finally, spiritual rest. This is the capacity to connect to something larger than yourself, meaning purpose, community, to ensure you don't feel like your work is inherently meaningless.
That is a profound framework. It really shows that just sleeping more it's completely insufficient.
It is.
Which brings us to the power of active recovery. We tend to think of recovery as passive, binge watching a show, but that might actually be counterproductive.
It is often counterproductive.
Yeah.
If you lie on the sofa and you're actively doom scrolling through news sites or complex, mentally stimulating social media feeds, you are not detaching.
You're still consuming.
You're just consuming different content that can still increase your anxiety and keep you locked in that same performance mindset. Yeah. Active recovery is intentional.
So what are the markers of high-quality active recovery?
Active recovery involves activities that replenish your resources while using different neural pathways. It could be vigorous exercise that forces you to focus only on movement, walking in nature without a device, or engaging in a hobby like playing a musical instrument or painting that shifts your mental resources from analytical work to creative or physical engagement. The absolute key is detachment from performance metrics. You're not trying to be the best at hiking, you're just hiking.
If we don't build in this kind of detachment, we fall victim to a phenomenon that I think most people have heard of, but very few apply correctly.
Oh yes, Parkinson's law.
Parkinson's law.
It's fundamental to both efficiency and burnout prevention. It states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion.
So if I give myself 8 hours for a task that realistically only takes 4, my brain will subconsciously stretch that task to fill the full 8 hours. I'll add complexity, I'll overthink it.
Absolutely. You will. And the implication here is essential for preventing burnout. You must set hard limits on your time. If you allow work to endlessly expand into your evenings and weekends simply because the time is available, you will never truly rest, and you will become fundamentally inefficient during the workday itself.
This necessitates the difference between a soft stop and a hard stop. A soft stop is, I'll probably start working around 6.
Right, which means 7 or 8.
Or 9. A hard stop is, my laptop is closing at 6:00 p.m., period, and I have communicated this boundary to my team.
The hard stop is the critical boundary that forces efficiency. Knowing you have a finite amount of time, say, until 6 p.m. forces you to focus immediately on your deep work tasks and ruthlessly streamline the shallow work. It completely eliminates the luxury of wasted time.
Let's integrate some necessary vocabulary around setting these limits and building resilience, starting with how we actually establish those boundaries.
The phrase we use is to draw a line in the sand. This means setting a strict, non-negotiable limit that you simply refuse to cross, especially when it concerns your personal time.
So an example would be,
I drew a line in the sand regarding checking weekend emails after Saturday morning. That boundary is communicated and it's maintained.
And when we repeatedly ignore those lines we draw, we enter that depleted state we need to avoid.
That's when you are running on fumes. You're continuing to operate based purely on habit or momentum, even though your internal physical and emotional reserves are completely depleted. That state is unsustainable, and it just accelerates the transition into deep burnout.
And the ultimate antidote to running on fumes, especially in our hyper-connected world, is the necessity to just unplug.
To unplug is to completely disconnect from digital devices, from professional communications, from the constant input of information. It's an act of radical self-care in the modern world.
And it has to be scheduled.
It's vital to schedule this unplugged time, maybe one digital Sabbath day a week, to allow for genuine mental and sensory decompression.
So if we successfully manage our boundaries, prioritize all those different types of rest, and embrace active recovery, we build something crucial, something for long-term effectiveness, not just short-term output.
We build resilience. And resilience is not about avoiding stress. It's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, setbacks, and stress. It is a skill that must be practiced.
So it's a muscle.
It's a muscle. If you can bounce back from a terrible Monday by maintaining your hard stop and getting sufficient recovery, you are building resilience. It is absolutely key to sustaining long-term professional success and, personal well-being.
Excellent. So we've covered optimizing our output and preventing self-destruction via burnout. Now that we understand the internal mental game, let's move to our final segment, environment design.
My favorite.
This is the powerful and, I think, often overlooked idea that your environment dictates your behavior far more consistently than sheer willpower ever will.
This concept is foundational. Willpower is finite. It's a muscle that fatigues throughout the day. Your environment, conversely, is persistent. It's always surrounding you.
We're victims of it.
We are often victims of our surroundings simply because we haven't taken the time to become the architect of our choice.
The architect of your choice.
I like that. The central concept here that we need to learn to manipulate is friction.
Yes. Friction, in this context, refers to the resistance or the effort required to start a task, whether it's physical or digital. If the friction is high, you will almost always default to the path of least resistance, regardless of how motivated you felt an hour ago.
And this provides a really simple, two-pronged practical application for manipulating our environment.
It's simplicity itself. We must ruthlessly reduce friction for good habits and deliberately increase friction for bad habits.
Make good things easy, bad things hard.
That's it. The goal is to make the desired action so easy that it's effortless and the undesirable action just annoying enough that your brain opts out. Okay, let's run through some detailed examples of reducing friction for good habits.
Think about what you want to achieve. If you want to start exercising in the morning, don't just set an alarm. Reduce the friction by sleeping in your workout clothes.
I've done that. It works.
Lay your shoes out right next to the bed. If you want to learn that new skill, don't keep the related book or instrument stored away in a closet. Leave the book open on the kitchen counter or the guitar on a stand right in the middle of your common space. You're creating a visual cue that reduces the effort required to start to basically zero.
That makes so much intuitive sense. You see the guitar, you pick it up for 2 minutes, and boom, you've just broken the inertia.
Exactly.
Conversely, increasing friction for bad habits requires more effort, but the payoff is massive.
If you find yourself endlessly checking time-sink websites, don't rely on willpower. It will fail you. Implement technical friction. Use website blockers. Log out of social media every single time you use it.
Oh, that's a good one. Having to re-enter the password?
It's high friction. Or, in the physical world, if late-night snacking is your vice, don't just put the chips on a high shelf. Put them in the garage. Force yourself to walk outside in the cold to get them. Most of the time, you won't bother.
The point here is that we have to curate the environment to pre-decide our actions for us.
To curate is to select, organize, and look after the items in an environment with care and intention. You are intentionally choosing what enters your field of vision and what stays out.
You're not passive.
No. You are curating your digital environment by cleaning up your desktop and unsubscribing from unnecessary email lists. You are curating your physical environment by ensuring it is conducive to the state you wish to achieve.
And what does conducive mean in practice for, say, a workspace?
Conducive just means making a certain situation or outcome likely or possible. A quiet space, free of visual clutter and the potential for notification pop-ups, is conducive to deep work. A busy communal table at a coffee shop, while it sometimes offers ambient noise, is less conducive because of the constant visual distractions and social pressures.
That leads to the benefit of a clean aesthetic. It's not just about looking good, especially when we talk about minimalism.
No, the minimalist aesthetic serves a powerful cognitive purpose. A clear desk promotes a clear mind. Research actually shows that visual clutter creates measurable mental noise.
Really?
Yes. Your brain registers every stack of paper, every misplaced pen, every stray object, and this continually increases your internal cognitive load, even if you don't consciously realize it.
It's the constant low-grade hum of distraction.
Precisely. By adopting a clean, supportive aesthetic, you are creating a workspace that actively supports your ability to focus, rather than demanding small, constant taxes on your attention.
Finally, let's tie this all back to the optimization theme we started with. We should always be looking to streamline our processes.
To streamline is to make a system or process more efficient and effective, often by eliminating unnecessary steps. We need to audit our routines constantly. Where are we needlessly adding friction? Can we automate the payment of bills? Can we use templates for routine communication? Streamlining ensures that our precious energy is reserved for deep work, not wasted on redundant, shallow work logistics.
We have covered a truly substantial amount of ground today. I mean, this deep dive has given you a comprehensive toolkit, moving far beyond mere time management.
It has?
We've defined and figured out how to schedule deep work. We've identified the psychological root of procrastination and the specific strategies for beating it. We've mapped out the different types of rest required to prevent burnout.
And finally, provided the architecture for designing your environment by manipulating friction.
It's a powerful framework, but we have to reiterate the core principle of this entire discussion.
Knowledge without application is useless.
Exactly.
Passive consumption of this deep dive will not change your life. Action is absolutely essential.
So we have a concrete challenge for you, the listener, right now. This is where we demand action, not just agreement or, nodding along.
We want you to internalize this eat the frog concept and turn it into tomorrow's reality. Prove to yourself that you can overcome that internal resistance.
Your mission. Identify one frog. This must be one task, just one, that you have been carrying around in your emotional backpack. That one difficult, complex, or anxiety-inducing task you've been putting off for days, maybe even weeks. You know the one. It's the one that causes the most dread.
And tomorrow morning, we challenge you to create a rhythmic deep work block. Dedicate the first 45 minutes of your day, or even one single Pomodoro block exclusively to that task. You're to do this before you check your email.
Before social media.
Before you open social media and before you engage in any shallow work whatsoever.
This requires rigor in your environment design. You have to remove all digital and physical distractions. Put your phone in another room. Close all unnecessary computer tabs. Tell people you are unavailable for that short block of time.
And then just observe. Observe the power of inertia being broken by immediate focused action. See how it feels to complete the hardest part of your day before 10:00 a.m. It shifts the entire psychological tenor of your workday from reaction to proactive control.
We want you to ride that wave of accomplishment. But as we finish, we want you to recognize something a little deeper, something that requires compassion, and a long-term perspective.
Acknowledge that bad days are going to happen. Unexpected interruptions, surges of procrastination. They are inevitable. The goal of optimization is not perfection.
Never.
The goal is a positive trajectory. Be compassionate with yourself when you falter, but use the friction manipulation techniques and the 2-minute rule to get back on the path quickly.
Our final reflection, the provocative thought we want you to carry into your week, focuses on the immediate internal reward of that achievement.
When you finish that difficult task tomorrow morning, focus not just on the completion, but on the neurochemistry of that moment. We're constantly seeking these tiny external dopamine hits from shallower, the instant gratification of a quick email response.
It's cheap stuff.
It is. But when you eat the frog, you receive this massive surge of different chemicals. Dopamine and confidence derive from competence. That incredible, sustainable feeling of relief, of self-efficacy and competence. That is the long-term fuel for true optimization. It is far superior to the quick fix of getting to inbox 0.
So observe and reflect on that specific feeling. Recognize that you generated it through intentional discipline, and then use that feeling to power your next deep work session. Go forth, be the architect of your day, optimize your processes, and just keep practicing these techniques. Until next time.
Cheers and be well.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So, if you've been with us, you know we've spent a lot of time recently on architecting that perfect internal routine. We really got into the nuts and bolts of productivity, optimizing the day, building those habits, really mastering the self.
And look, those internal systems are absolutely foundational. They're crucial. But there's a point where, especially for the advanced learner, those internal things, they hit a wall.
Yeah.
And that wall is the external world. I mean, you have to face the reality that the most perfectly planned routine is going to struggle. It might even just fail if the social environment you're in is draining or chaotic.
That's so true. We're social animals, right? If you can't communicate well, if your relationships don't have any real depth, you're just burning all this emotional and intellectual energy fighting friction from the outside.
Exactly. Your perfect routine becomes, almost irrelevant because you're spending all your time just compensating for bad connections.
So today, we're making a pretty critical pivot.
Yeah, we are. We're moving from that internal architecture of your day to the external landscape. We're going to talk about the art of conversation, curating your social circle, and the absolute necessity of lifelong growth.
And this is really for you, the advanced learner. You probably have the grammar down, you have the vocabulary, but we're talking about that plateau, right? That feeling where people understand you, but you're missing the nuance for a real deep connection.
It's about moving beyond just being fluent in a language to being fluent in, the human operating system.
I like that.
It's the difference between knowing how to speak and knowing how to connect, how to influence. So let's start with the most basic piece of that conversation.
Okay, so first things first, we have to talk about small talk. It gets such a bad rap, doesn't it?
It really does. People dismiss it as, superficial, banal, a waste of time.
Especially people who think of themselves as deep thinkers. They want to jump right into the big questions.
And that is it's a huge mistake. It shows a misunderstanding of how people actually connect. Small talk isn't the end goal. It's the on-ramp. It's the classic social lubricant.
That's the perfect metaphor, because if you just jam two people together for the first time, there's all this social friction. You can't just walk up to someone and ask them about their deepest fears.
Right. You just can't.
Yeah.
Small talk is that entry point. It builds a baseline of safety and this is a key word, rapport. It's a low-stakes way to just test the waters.
So it's the necessary warm-up. And the real goal then for the advanced learner is to pivot from the weather and the traffic to something with, more substance, something more cerebral or emotional.
The transition is everything. And there are actual techniques for this. One of the best is something called threading.
Oh, I love threading. Tell us how that works.
So threading is when you pick up on a small detail, someone mentioned earlier, something that seems kind of throwaway, and you weave it back into the conversation later on. So let's say someone mentions they were stuck in traffic, but they were listening to a documentary on, Roman history.
Right.
Later, when the conversation has moved on, you could say, That reminds me, you mentioned that Roman history documentary. I'm curious, did anything in there connect to what we're talking about now?
Oh, that's brilliant, because it does two things at once, right? First, it proves you are actually listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly. And second, it elevates the conversation.
Yeah.
You're asking them to make a connection, which is way more engaging than just stating facts.
You can also use a more structured approach, like the AIR model.
The AIR model. Okay, break that down for us.
So A is for assessment. You start with a positive observation about the shared environment. Something like, this conference is really well organized.
Okay, low stakes.
Then I, for information, you offer one specific, non-personal fact about yourself. I flew in from London this morning. Very objective.
Got it.
And then R, the request. This is the pivot. You ask an open-ended question. What were you hoping to get out of this event today?
I see. So you're moving from observation to information to a request for their perspective. It's a clear path.
It's the opposite of rambling, and it moves you from what we call transactional talk.
Right, transactional conversations. That's most of what we do. Did you get the report? Meetings at 2. You're just exchanging data. It's efficient, but it builds zero connection.
Zero. And the goal is to get to transformational conversations. That's where you're not just exchanging info, you're exchanging perspectives.
You're actually learning something new about how they see the world. That's where trust is built.
And the key skill to make that jump, and this is maybe the most important thing we'll say today, isn't about speaking, it's about listening.
The power of active listening. It sounds so basic, but it's incredibly hard to master in a world of constant distractions.
It is. I think the source material had a definition that just blew my mind. It said most people listen with the intent to respond, not with the intent to understand.
Say that again. That's profound. The intent to respond versus the intent to understand. One is about you and the other is about them.
When you're listening to respond, you're waiting for a gat. You're formulating your comeback, your witty anecdote, while they're still talking.
You're not really hearing them. You're just monitoring them. And that means you have to suppress your ego. You have to consciously decide to just absorb what they're saying first.
So what does that look like in practice?
It means you have to validate their experience before you offer your own. So when they finish talking, you don't jump in with, well, here's what I think.
Right.
You start by reflecting. You say something like, okay, so if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like that was frustrating because of X and Y.
You're showing them you got it. Not just the words, but the feeling behind them.
Exactly. That creates psychological safety.
Yes.
And then they'll be willing to go deeper with you. You also have to pay attention to the nonverbals, right?
Yeah.
The body language, the tone.
Oh, absolutely. The classic example is when you ask someone how they are, and they say, I'm fine, but their shoulders are hunched and they won't make eye contact.
The words are saying one thing, but the body is screaming something else entirely. The active listener picks up on that nuance. They hear the whole message, not just the text.
Okay, let's drill down on some of that specific vocabulary. We already use it, but let's define rapport.
Rapport is that feeling of being in sync. It's a harmonious relationship where you just get each other. You understand their ideas, their feelings. It feels effortless.
And when you're doing all these things, we're talking about active listening, validating. You're actively building rapport. It's not magic, it's a skill.
It's the foundation of trust. They've done studies on negotiations, establishing rapport in the first 5 minutes. It has a huge impact on the final outcome.
That's incredible. Okay, next word, one we've already hit on, but it's so critical, nuance.
Nuance is everything for the advanced learner. It's that subtle shade of meaning, the difference between the literal definition and the implied meaning.
Like the word ambitious. In a job interview, that's a compliment. But if you say someone is too ambitious, that carries a whole different negative nuance, right?
Exactly. It implies they might be ruthless.
Yeah.
Understanding that subtle difference is the key. To convey your own ideas with nuance, you need to be articulate.
And articulate doesn't just mean using big words.
No, not at all. It means speaking fluently and coherently. Your ideas are organized, they flow logically, you can have perfect grammar, but if your thoughts are all over the place, you're not articulate.
So it's clarity of thought before clarity of speech.
That's it. On the other side of that coin, though, is a word of warning. Don't be verbose.
Which means using way more words than you need to.
Yeah, being long-winded. A lot of people think using complex language makes them sound smart, but it often just makes them sound tedious or worse, like they're hiding something.
Right. Being concise is a sign of confidence. It shows you actually command the material.
So it's a balance. You're aiming for articulation, you're listening for nuance, you're building rapport, and you're avoiding being verbose. That's the art of conversation.
Which brings us perfectly to the next topic, the company we keep. If you're honing all these skills, you have to think about the environment you're using them in.
You do. There's that famous Jim Rohn quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with."
Everyone's heard that one. And it can be a little uncomfortable to think about, can it?
It can, because it has real implications.
Yeah.
The concept behind it is what we call social osmosis.
So just like in biology, we're passively absorbing things from the people around us.
Exactly. Their habits, their attitudes, their vocabulary, even their ambitions. It happens unconsciously through things like mirror neurons.
So our brains are literally mirroring the people we're with.
That's right. Your brain fires in the same way when you watch someone do something as when you do it yourself. So if you're surrounded by people who are constantly negative and complaining,
You start to feel that way yourself. You catch their mood.
it's called emotional contagion. And it takes a massive amount of energy to fight that pull. But the reverse is also true. Surround yourself with driven, curious people, and you create this incredible synergy. You all rise together.
Which leads to a really tough but necessary task. You have to audit your circle.
It sounds so cold, doesn't it? Like you're doing a business inventory. But it's about protecting your mental ecosystem.
But let's push back on that a little. What if you have to spend time with certain people, family, coworkers? You can't just eliminate them from your life.
That's a great point. The audit isn't about elimination, it's about allocation. You have to consciously manage their influence.
So you limit the mental and emotional space they take up, even if you can't limit the time.
Exactly. You create a kind of firewall. You prioritize who gets your deepest engagement. And a big reason for this is to avoid the crab bucket mentality.
Oh, that's such a powerful image.
Isn't it? A single crab can easily climb out of a bucket. But if the bucket is full of crabs, the moment one starts to climb out, the others will literally pull it back down.
Wow. And that's a metaphor for peer pressure. When you try to improve yourself, to climb out of your own bucket, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who try to pull you back.
They do. It often comes out as, concern or teasing, but it's really about their own fear or envy. They don't want you to leave them behind.
So how do you tell the difference between genuine concern and that kind of envious sabotage? Because sometimes friends see real risks we don't.
That is a brilliant distinction to make. I'd say helpful caution is specific and solution-oriented. It's, I support you, but have you thought about X and Y? Sabotage is personal and general. It's, you're not the kind of person who can do that. It attacks you, not the plan.
That's really clear. Now, there's another idea here that seems counterintuitive, which is the power of weak ties.
Yes, from the sociologist Mark Granovetter. The idea is that your acquaintances, your weak ties, are often more valuable for things like finding a job or new opportunities than your close friends.
Why is that?
Because your close friends, your strong ties, all know the same people and the same information. There's a lot of redundancy. Your weak ties, on the other hand, are bridges to entirely different networks, different worlds of information.
So you need both. The deep support from strong ties and the new opportunities from weak ties.
You need a balanced portfolio of relationships. It's about curating a circle that supports you but also expands your world.
Okay, let's lock this in with some vocabulary. First up, camaraderie.
Camaraderie is that deep sense of mutual trust and friendship that comes from shared experience, especially shared struggle. Think of a sports team or a military unit. That's the glue that holds them together under pressure.
It's built on trust and respect. Next, reciprocity.
And this is more than just a simple tit for tat. Healthy relationships are built on reciprocity, a mutual exchange of value over time.
But the value doesn't have to be the same, right?
Right. I might give you career advice, and you might give me emotional support when I need it. The currency is different, but the value is balanced. If it's all one way, the relationship eventually dies.
And a major danger in curating our circles today, especially online, is the echo chamber.
Yes. An environment where you only ever hear opinions that reflect your own. The algorithms are literally designed to create these for us.
Which feels comfortable, but it's deadly for intellectual growth. You lose the ability to argue, to question your own assumptions.
You have to actively seek out intelligent dissent. You have to break out of that chamber on purpose.
The antidote to a lot of this negativity, like the crab bucket, is our final word here.
Altruism.
Which is the selfless concern for the well-being of others. When you have altruism in your circle, people celebrate your success. They want you to climb out of the bucket because they believe a rising tide lifts all boats. It's an abundance mindset, not a scarcity one.
Okay, which brings us to our final pillar for today, the absolute imperative of lifelong growth. I mean, in this century, the ability to learn is the only real currency, isn't it?
It is the ultimate currency. The moment you decide you know enough, you start becoming obsolete. Stagnation just isn't an option anymore. And we can actually quantify this with the idea of the half-life of a skill.
That's a terrifying concept, but it's real. A tech skill you learned 5 years ago might only be half as valuable today because the industry has moved on so fast.
So you have to be constantly learning just to stay in the same place.
You do. You can't rely on your diploma from 10 years ago. A strategic way to handle this is to develop T-shaped knowledge.
Okay, what's that?
So imagine the letter T. The vertical bar is deep expertise in one specific area. The horizontal bar is broad knowledge across many different but related fields.
So you have depth and breadth.
Exactly. The depth makes you valuable now. The breadth makes you adaptable for the future. When your deep skill starts to become obsolete, you can pivot because you understand the landscape.
To do that, you have to take charge of your own education. You have to be an autodidact.
A self-taught person. Someone who doesn't wait to be taught, but actively seeks out knowledge. And for our listeners, this applies directly to learning English.
Right. You might feel like you've finished learning the language.
But you never finish. A language is a living thing. There are always more books, more idioms, new slang. The autodidact knows that mastery is a process, not a destination.
And to sustain that process, you need the right mindset. This brings us to Carol Dweck's work.
Yes, the growth mindset. The belief that your abilities aren't fixed, that you can develop them through dedication and hard work.
As opposed to the fixed mindset, which is the belief that talent is just innate. I'm just not a math person.
That's the killer phrase. It just shuts down all possibility of effort. But Dweck gave us this incredibly simple tool to fight it. The word yet.
So powerful.
Well, it changes everything. I'm not good at public speaking is a fixed statement. I'm not good at public speaking yet is a growth statement. It opens a door to the future.
But how do we make that more than just a motivational poster?
You need a practical tool. And a great one is the failure portfolio.
A failure portfolio. I love that. Tell me more.
It's just what it sounds like. You keep a written log of your failures or setbacks. But, and this is the critical part, for each one, you have to list the top 3 lessons you learned and what you'll do differently next time.
So it forces you to reframe failure as data. It's not a verdict, it's just information.
Exactly. It makes failure a functional, required part of your learning process. It hardwires the growth mindset.
And if you keep doing this across many fields, you start moving toward the ideal of the polymath.
The Renaissance person. Someone whose knowledge is wide and deep, who can connect ideas from different fields to create something new.
Because knowledge isn't siloed, right? Learning history helps you understand politics. Learning biology helps you understand psychology.
It's all interconnected. The biggest breakthroughs happen at the intersections of different disciplines.
Okay, let's wrap this section up with its vocabulary. The driver of all of this is being inquisitive.
Which is just being deeply curious, not just asking what, but always asking why. It's the engine of the autodidact.
And when you're inquisitive for a long time, you can become erudite.
Right, which means having or showing great knowledge. It's not just knowing a lot of facts. It's about having a deep, synthesized understanding. It's wisdom, not just data.
Then there's acumen. This feels more practical.
It is. Acumen is the ability to make good judgments and quick decisions in a specific area. Business acumen, social acumen, it's about applying your knowledge effectively under pressure.
So you can be erudite without having acumen. You can know all the theories, but not know how to act.
Precisely. And when all this comes together, your broad knowledge, your deep learning, you can have a moment of epiphany.
A sudden breakthrough realization.
Yeah, that aha moment. It feels like it comes out of nowhere, but it's really the result of all that background processing, all that T-shaped knowledge suddenly clicking into place.
That's the ultimate reward for all that hard work.
It is. So we've really gone through a whole system today, haven't we? From your internal habits to your external conversations and circles, and finally to your own mental evolution.
The whole architecture. And the core message seems to be about being an active participant, not a passive consumer of your own life.
That's it exactly. Don't just let life happen to you. Design your habits, curate your circle, and never, ever stop being curious.
Your internal routine gives you the fuel, your conversation skills build the connections, and the growth mindset makes sure you're always ready for the future.
And as always, we have a challenge for you. This week, we want you to go out and initiate one truly substantive conversation.
So skip the small talk. Go deeper. You could ask someone, what is a belief you've changed your mind about recently?
Ooh, that's a good one. That really makes someone think. Or you could try, what's a problem you're really focused on solving right now? And then just listen. Practice active listening. Validate what they say.
And for you, our listener, trying this in English is the gold standard. It's the ultimate real-world application of your advanced skills.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to mull over. We talked about the half-life of a skill. If everything you know is slowly losing value, what is the next essential thing you must learn right now just to maintain your edge?
Keep connecting, keep designing, and keep that growth mindset sharp. We'll speak to you soon.